Hi, I'm Kristen Poole, and I'm the Artistic Director at the Sun Valley Museum of Art. And I was fortunate enough to co-curate this exhibition with Courtney Gilbert, our Curator of Visual Arts. Courtney and I began to think about this place and the land of this place a couple of years ago after we did a project at Craters of the Moon. And I, for years, have been enchanted with the Camas Prairie. The Camas Prairie is a landscape about 30 miles wide that is just southwest of the Wood River Valley. And people in the Wood River Valley are frequently traveling through the Camas and through the city of Fairfield to make their way to Boise. We frequently forget to stop and forget to look and forget to pay attention. And so this exhibition is an attempt for us to celebrate what's there and spend some time looking a little bit more deeply. But it's also a place that has a very rich and complicated history, and a history that's very similar to the history of many towns in the American West. So we selected 5 visual artists and invited them to create brand new bodies of work from their experience on the prairie, and then invited Judith Freeman, who is a really talented author who's written both fiction and nonfiction and lives on the prairie part-time, to do an essay that will be included in our catalog. The reason why this prairie is so important is that the Camas bulb, the base that's underground, is a food source and has been harvested for centuries by Native American tribes, particularly the Shoshone and the Bannock, who have traveled and were part of the landscape of that prairie for many, many centuries before the 19th century settlers came in and began to use that landscape for agriculture. Today, the Camas Prairie continues to be used by the Shoshone and Bannock tribe. They regularly harvest the Camas bulb still. So we wanted to get at the prairie. We wanted to celebrate its beauty, the sounds, the colors. The palette of the prairie is really remarkable and lovely. We wanted to celebrate the history of the prairie and again pull out the fact that it is very indicative of the history of the American West. And we also wanted to acknowledge that the Shoshone and Bannock were on this land for a very, very long time and have this relationship to this flower and to this system that I don't think very many people here are aware of. So the first person I wanted to speak about was a man named Anthony Hernandez. He is known as primarily a photographer who has focused on urban environments, particularly Los Angeles, which is his place of birth. But Tony lives half of his life on the prairie and half of his life in Los Angeles. The way that Anthony Hernandez photographs right now is through a screen that he actually places between his camera lens and the thing that he's photographing. And that screen provides this kind of blurry, obscured image. This idea of isolating very simple objects and blurring them and sort of eliminating the details almost forces us to look more closely.
Like the photographer Anthony Hernandez, the artist Derek No Sun Brown is someone who already had a relationship with the Camas Prairie when we invited him to participate in this project. No Sun Brown is Shoshone-Bannock, and he's also a member of the Bois Fort Band of Chippewa. His Shoshone-Bannock family has a really deep relationship with the Camas Prairie, and he wrote this beautiful story about visiting the prairie after his grandmother's funeral. His grandmother was the family matriarch, and the entire extended family, from his grandfather to his and his siblings' children, all drove over to the prairie together to harvest camas, and how that experience was a way to both honor the memory of his grandmother and connect with her, but also to renew their ancestral relationship with that land. We invited No Sun to participate in this project as part of a collaborative effort to create new signage to place at Centennial Marsh on the Camas Prairie that will tell the Shoshone-Bannock history on the prairie and their contemporary relationship to that place more fully.
Another artist that we were very excited to include was a man who has no relationship to the Wood River Valley, had never been here before, and certainly had no relationship to the Camas Prairie. But we were interested in Danny Gordon's approach to art making, his sort of enchantment with color and with form. He is very Matissean in his approach to making his pictures. And he's sort of this hybrid kind of guy. He's a very 21st century artist, because although the end product are photographs, in the process of making his photographs, he uses collages, he uses digitized images, he uses sculpture. So he came to the prairie the spring of 2019 when the prairie was in remarkable bloom, and he took photographs and then went back to his studio in Brooklyn. And what Danny does is he prints the photographs that he takes and then sometimes cuts out those images, re-photographs them, sometimes after he's built a three-dimensional object, tricking you and getting you to try to sort out what is two-dimensional, what is three-dimensional, and what's going on in the space that his images are in. So he's created wallpaper. He actually built wallpaper from his pixelated images, and the room that these three pictures are in is a whole environment for you to come and experience.
Like Daniel Gordon, M.K. Guth is an artist who had never spent time on the Camas Prairie before she participated in this project with us. She is an artist based in Portland. She is an artist whose practice is really focused on the idea of examining social rituals and places where people come together for social engagement. So most of her projects invite community participation, and people who participate in her projects are the people who actually complete her artwork in a lot of ways. For this exhibition, we have two separate bodies of work that she has created in response to the prairie. A lot of her recent works are sculptures that involve books, objects, and instructions for creating shared experiences around food or drink. So a shared meal with a theme, for example. So for this project, she designed Dinner for a Camas Flower, a sculpture that includes an object with importance to her, a book with a set of instructions for organizing a dinner, and the idea of bringing people together and inviting them to each bring an object that has personal meaning for them and to share that object and that story during the dinner. The other project that she created for this exhibition was an opportunity for members of our community to come together in a shared art project that M.K. Guth led, painting pieces of fabric with their impressions of the Camas Prairie. So we used fabric paints and rectangles of fabric and all different kinds of paint brushes to get at the colors of the prairie, the textures, the different kinds of plants that lived there, of course the lily too. And the results were these really beautiful flags that range from quite realistic to super abstract interpretations of the landscape. Because this exhibition is so focused on the idea of landscape in the American West, it was really important to both Kristen and to me that we create a sculpture that could exist outside in the landscape as part of this project. Sopheap Pich is an artist who lives and works in Cambodia, whose work Kristen and I first saw in 2013 when we visited an exhibition he had at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. And Pich works primarily with bamboo and rattan and with metal, making lattice-like sculptures that vary from somewhat realistic representations of different kinds of plants and flowers to abstract forms. Pich grew up in Cambodia during the Khmer Rouge period, and one of the foods that his family relied on for survival was the morning glory flower, which they made into a soup. And one of his earliest kind of monumental sculptures was an incredibly beautiful, large-scale morning glory flower made of bamboo and rattan. And that led to an interest in flowers with different kinds of social and political meanings. We have a sculpture in this exhibition of the Rong Phnom flower, which is a flower that's important to Buddhists. And then because of the history of the Camas lily bulb as a food source and as a plant with importance in the Native American community, the result was this incredible 26-foot tall bamboo, rattan, and metal sculpture of an upside-down Camas lily resting on the petals of its bloom as the stem of the flower goes up into the air and the Camas bulb rests at the top. It was really important to put the bulb at the top because to him that's the part of the plant that carries the history and the significance.
We're particularly delighted that Sopheap Pich was able to do a large outdoor sculpture for us, and that sculpture will be here in Ketchum for everyone in the community to enjoy for as long as it lasts. So I encourage you to come and at least do a walk by of Sopheap's sculpture on the land. We're also super grateful to the National Endowment for the Arts and to the Robert Lehman Foundation for their support of this project. Please come and see it and enjoy it. Thank you.